ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ 2:35 ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਹਰਜਿੰਦਰ ਗਿੱਲ ਸ਼ੋ ਰੋਵੇਨਾ ਸੈਂਟੋਸ ਸਾਡੇ ਰੀਜਨਲ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਨੇ ਵਾਰਡਸ 1 and 5 ਤੋਂ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਖਾਸ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਨੇ ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਰੋਵੇਨਾ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਸ਼ੋ
Thank you so much for having me.
So Rowena, this is the first time when we are just doing the live interview with you. Thanks for sparing some time for our listeners and our viewers.
Of course, good to be here.
So let's start with your opening remarks because I know there must be many topics to cover, but majorly we will be covering RRL pilot program today. But just apart from RRL, do you want to say something different in this opening remarks?
Sure. Well, I'm Rowena Santos, Regional Councillor for Brampton Wards 1 and 5. I'm also the Chair of Community Services at the City of Brampton, as well as Chair of Legislative Services, where in part some of the issues related to residential rental licensing pilot program are, in particular with respect to bylaw enforcement. But we just celebrated, Harjinder, the International Women's Day at the City of Brampton just on Friday, Saturday, and in fact we continue celebrating for the entire month.
Right.
This month we're celebrating women. And I think one of the things that, apart from talking about landlord licensing, Councillor 𝗚𝗏𝗏 and I, as you know, are the only two elected women that are sitting on the council table.
Right.
And we've been working very hard to bring and raise the voices of women so that women can be heard and our issues more heard at the table and in policies and different programs in the city of Brampton. But we have shared that there's been a heightened amount of harassment and threats and lies and rumors and smears specifically targeted towards myself and Councillor 𝗚𝗏𝗏. And this is not uncommon for many women, not just elected women across the country, but also women in sports, women in leadership positions, women in media, you name it. Women in their different roles experience the same things that we've experienced as women on council. So I just really wanted to point that out because...
Can we just know more about that incident especially?
Yeah, so there has been over the past, since I've been elected in my first term going into my second term now, so it's now been over 5 years that I've been an elected official. And Councillor 𝗚𝗏𝗏, this is her first term. We have always been told, and I've shared this many times before, especially when it comes to gender-based violence, that we knew going into politics that it would be hard. Like you have to have a thick skin. But over the past few months, the level of hostility, particularly towards myself, Councillor 𝗚𝗏𝗏, has really escalated a lot.
Okay.
And to a point where I have personally received death threats, people threatening that I deserve to be raped, people following me to my car, people threatening me, but also referencing my son, and other inappropriate comments and disinformation specifically that Councillor 𝗚𝗏𝗏 and I get versus our male colleagues on council. And this is backed by research in terms of women, even more so now, getting more hostility and being targeted. And so we want to spread the message out there because there's a lot of talk about this as well, that the level of hostility, the disinformation, the lies, the smears, it needs to stop. And so Councillor 𝗚𝗏𝗏𝗏 and I, along with many women across the country, are just going to call it out, including Mayor Patrick Brown.
Right. So are there any official complaints against that incident or?
Yeah, so many of these complaints that I've received, or not complaints, but threats and harassment and death threats have been reported to police.
Okay.
So police are investigating
Any latest update on those complaints?
Which complaints?
So
the threats,
and especially to you.
Yeah, the police are investigating. It's ongoing, and in terms of complaints, like most of the stuff comes from social media. People hiding behind their keyboards and being anonymous in their comments and in their attacks.
So Reno, don't you think if somebody who's elected official, like you or Ms. 𝗚𝗏𝗏𝗏, so if you guys are facing these kind of problems, then what do you think other ordinary women are facing the similar problems? And are they vocal? Are they registering their complaints or not?
Yeah, so I think that is the whole point of myself, Councillor 𝗚𝗏𝗏𝗏, as well as other women. So for example, the mayor of Gatineau, Quebec, a woman, was elected in 2021. Her name is Mayor Bellel. She resigned just a week before I gave my remarks and a week before Councillor Brar gave our remarks for International Women's Day, she resigned because she said that the level of hostility that she faces as a woman in politics is unconscionable, that it's no longer acceptable, and it's affecting her mental health and concerning for her safety. And she stepped down.
Right.
And then we had other mayors in Quebec. I have colleagues, so I represent on the board at FCM, and I talk to women across the country. And they share similar stories. And not just now, but in the past. And part of the reason why women don't speak up is because many times we're afraid to say anything. Right. But, you know, when I was faced with a written threat, a death threat, rape threat, I just said, that's enough. That's taken it too far.
Right. So, friends, this is Harjinder Gill show, and you're listening Rowena Santos. She's with us in our studio. And today's topic, major topic, would be RRL now. Many people are interested to know. So, RRL pilot program, is that originated and planned by you only, or how do you want to address that question?
No.
So many people are thinking that this is your baby.
Yeah, and that's part of the disinformation and part of the misinformation that, again, that's out there. And I'll call it out as not true. This has actually been a conversation that even the previous term of council has been talking about. Illegal basement apartments and the issues related to fire safety, health safety, building code safety, too many people in the apartment, too many cars in the driveway, grass that's overgrown, garbage that's overflowing, rats in the backyard. We've been receiving these issues in comments for many years and have been trying to, in different ways, deal with the situation, whether that's through the registration program and the registration of secondary units, which started in 2018, or through just regular bylaw enforcement. And unfortunately, given the exponential number and growth of the number of illegal rental units in the city of Brampton, the situation has just gotten a bit out of control, and there are too many landlords out there, not all, but quite a few, who are unaccountable to their property. And so the licensing landlord program is actually a combination of input from other counselors, input from residents who've been complaining for many years, but it's also building on the stuff we've already done. So your question about this is something that is led by me. I passed the motion. Dennis Keenan, Councillor Keenan, seconded the motion together with Rod Power, who made an amendment to include Ward 7 in the pilot program. And all of council unanimously supported the motion. So in the way that council works, you can't actually have something happen without the approval and the support from council. So to say that this is something that is my initiative is false. But did I pass the motion? Did I work with my colleagues to bring forward an idea that council supported? Yes, because we were responding to the thousands of complaints from residents.
So we have heard about a couple of similar statements many times, especially the origination, when this the motion originated. There was a statement regarding 25 people are living in the same basement or same house. So is that the only point and statement from where this originated, or there were many different complaints or different options?
Thousands of complaints. It wasn't just that one incident. I think when Mayor Brown shared that example, it was just an example.
Can we just know more about that specific house or basement where city was stating that there were 25 people living in the same house? Was that in the same house or in the same basement, or what was that actual statement?
So it's in the same house. They're all living in the same house, and the house had 2 registered units. So the house had 2 legal units, but they were operating illegally because they had too many people in the house. So were they maybe found living in the basement at the time? Possibly. Were they found randomly throughout the entire house in the 2 registered units? Possibly. But this is an example of the illegal activity that is actually happening even within a house that has currently registered units.
Okay. So people want to know what happened with those 25 people. What happened with that same house? What city did after that complaint or after that initiative?
Well, those details I'm going to have to find out for you in terms of what happened afterwards. I don't know what happened to the people after.
Okay.
I'm certainly, with all the fire violations and the fire inspection, I can probably check and see what the results were from the fire inspection.
Right.
But I think what the mayor and what that example is just an example of the situation that we're facing here in our city when it comes to these illegally operated units.
Right. Actually, Rowena, I don't think I would be asking you anything new, which is, I think you have answered many questions hundreds of times before. But this is something where our listeners would be interested to know the basic idea behind this program, basic idea behind this pilot project. When we are talking about these kind of programs in different cities, so cities also giving the reference of another cities where this program is running very successfully. But for Bramptonians, this was something which is very new, and people were not aware about something is going to happen like this. And now there are many people. But as per my last interview with Mr. 𝗚𝗲𝗱𝗶𝗍, he stated that there are only 2 or 3 people who don't know about RRL. Do you believe so? There are only 2 or 3 people who don't know
we
about this
try.
program?
And thank you for that question. We try very hard to communicate to as many residents as possible through media, through social media, through notices, public notices about bylaws that are being passed, through council meetings, debates, discussions at council meetings. What I will say about this particular conversation about licensing landlords, it was one of the first items we talked about in this term of council. On November the 16th, which was our very first meeting of this council, I brought forward a conversation about licensing landlords.
Okay.
That was over a year ago, a year and a half ago now, that we've been talking about at the council, on my social media, in the media, about licensing landlords. And then we had various reports come to council from staff, because we've asked for reports, information about other municipalities, to your point, that are doing the same sort of thing. What other examples are there? Staff have been working on this for over a year. And in March of 2023, they brought forward a very specific report that includes similar examples of other jurisdictions implementing some sort of licensing program, as well as other considerations when bringing forward a licensing program. We had numerous delegations that are on the record on the city website, and I've also shared various other articles on my website about this conversation many months before the implementation. And we put posters in Garden Square. We put advertisements out. We had social media posts that this was coming in terms of implementation. And in September, followed by December of 2023, we passed the bylaw about licensing landlords, which was another opportunity for the public to come to council, whether you were supporting it, not supporting it, landlord or person in the neighborhood complaining about properties, to then provide further feedback at that council meeting before we started the implementation. Once the bylaw was passed at the end of the year 2023, an even broader notice went out to the public about this is coming. It was in the elevators at City Hall. It was on Garden Square on the screen. So like this message out there that, you know, we didn't do anything to notify people is also false. Unfortunately, there are still people who don't necessarily pay attention to everything. We all live busy lives.
Right. So do you think there are people out there, they are opposing this program, and there are some groups in the community, and they try to communicate with the council members and mayor, and sometimes there are many references when they try to delegate that in the council. But still they have some doubts. Still they think the city is not dealing properly. City is biased in terms of dealing with those specific groups or the people who are opposing this pilot project.
So I have a couple.
So what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, I have a couple of things to say about that. So I believe it was the end of January where we had a council meeting, and there were quite a number of landlords who attended to delegate to committee of council.
Okay.
And we heard a number of delegations, and of course we had to take a break for lunch, right?
Okay.
Because we need to take a break for lunch. So we took a break for lunch, and after the break we opened the floor again for more delegations and to listen to a good number of landlords who put their name on the list, most of them opposing it.
Okay.
Now, when we returned after the lunch break, many of those people who had their name on the list, they left.
Okay.
They left. They forfeited their opportunity to actually
So that happened only once or more than one?
Well, they left. Now, the people who actually stayed were the people who were actually supporting the RRL and had to endure hours of listening to all the people who opposed it.
Okay.
So those delegates stayed, and they were able to share the reasons why the landlord licensing program should continue. So, was there opportunity? Yes, there's opportunity. Some of those delegates whose names were on the list at that committee of council meeting, I know because I chaired the meeting.
Okay.
I called their names 3, 4, 5 times. They were available to delegate virtually and in person, and they were absent.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then in terms of, you had another question about that too.
So let's before we start, because I have some calls as well. So before we start taking calls, there is also a concern about the town hall meeting as well. So people are concerned about that arrangement. At the same time, they were asking for the face-to-face town hall meetings. But I think city is denying for that option. So what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, so the delegations that happened at that council meeting was, again, another opportunity for people to delegate to council. Many people didn't show up. We decided to do a telephone town hall because telephone town halls we've seen to be very effective in terms of when we were dealing with COVID, in terms of when we were dealing with snow plowing, etc. And it has such a broader reach because in telephone town halls, we call every single household on our list, asking them to participate.
So do you have any number how many people were called on that day?
It would have been our entire list. I don't know off the top of my head how many numbers.
Around 7,000-8,000 or more or less?
There were more numbers that were called,
okay.
But the number of people who actually answered the phone
was
what 7,000.
What was the criteria to pick those calls? Because I have asked the same question to Mr. Paul in the last interview. The people were complaining that day the calls were just pre-arranged. They were cherry-picked calls. So many people were complaining that their calls were never been.
So what's interesting about this is when we have a telephone town hall, we have a broad list, like thousands, more than the 7,000 that actually answered the phone.
Okay.
Thousands of people who get called asking to participate in the telephone town hall, which is why it is more effective because you could reach more people. Okay. In an in-person town hall, like we've experienced most recently, only a certain number of people you can reach, and then a certain number of people can actually attend in person, et cetera, et cetera. A telephone town hall has the broadest reach with the most number of people.
So what about the transparency? Because
so I'll get to that. So the 7,000 people or more, 7,000 to 8,000 people who actually participated in the call. So there are questions about whether or not they were screened. Number one, that's false. They were not screened. There's no way that we could screen 7,000, 8,000 phone calls in 10 minutes. It's just not possible. Right? Now, the second thing that I will say is that we conducted surveys in that call, right? There were 3 questions. And one was about cracking down on illegal landlords, and I can't remember the other 2 off the top of my head. One of them was about criminal negligence, holding, properties that are found to have fires and not following proper fire code, or somebody dies in the fire, that they should be held for criminal negligence. And so we asked those questions.
Okay.
There is no way Like, we got to think about this. There's no way that we could screen the responses.
Okay, so
the responses are the response, and it was overwhelming majority of people who support cracking down on illegal landlords, who supported licensing of landlords.
Okay.
And actually a majority who said, yes, you should hold these slum landlords to account for criminal negligence if somebody dies on their property.
Right. So there is no way that the city will be arranging any face-to-face town hall?
So the actual lifting of the pause of the program is going to be happening, I believe it's on time for the end of March.
Okay.
In terms of opportunities for a town hall, again, we had a telephone town hall. There were numerous people who submitted their names for delegations at the end of January. More than probably half of them didn't bother showing up.
Okay.
As well as comments through email, comments on social media, comments through media. Beyond having an in-person town hall, I would have to say that the extent of the consultation on this particular file has been quite significant. Now, if folks just want to have a town hall in person so that they could yell and scream the same way that some folks did during council meeting at the end of January, that's not a constructive debate.
Right.
What you and I are having right now is a constructive debate.
So then what would be the solution for, because still people are there and they are opposing and they are not in favor of this this program.
Yeah.
So what are the options for those people, for those groups, for those special will there be any option or any chance for them to raise their voice?
Yeah, so they've raised their voice. And we are.
But do you think that's been heard?
So we are fully aware that people oppose it. But we are also fully aware that there are thousands of people in Brampton who support this.
Right.
And so the way that we are balancing this out is we did put the program on a pause to sit and reflect, but also implement ways to streamline and deal with some of the concerns that those who have problems with the program, how to deal with it. And so even if we, let's say we don't do it. Let's say we listen to the opposition and say, we're going to cancel the program. Well, guess what? There will be thousands, even more people who are going to be upset saying, how come you didn't hear my voice?
Right.
What about the voices of the people who've been complaining for years about the lack of accountability of landlords? This program holds landlords to account in a proactive way, and it makes sure that they are reminded that they need to follow the rules. Simple. And you know what? For the most part, there are so many landlords who are doing an incredible job. They're doing a fantastic job, and we have found ways to make sure that their concerns about the program are addressed. What this program is about is cracking down on the illegal slum landlords to hold them accountable and make sure that they follow the very basic health and safety standards as well as property standards that the municipality is responsible for upholding.
So, Rowena, people are also getting upset with that word.
What's that?
Slumlords.
Well, there are slumlords that do exist. That's not everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is 2:58 right now, and this is Harjinder Gill show, and we'll start taking some calls, and probably we will just take 3 or 4 calls only. I know that there are 3 callers already on hold. One is 7490, then Sarabjit Gill and Mr. Ravi Sohul. I know Ravi Sohul, he floated the petition against this program. So what I'll do is maybe Raviji, please hold on. I'll take you at the last, and for another 2 calls, I'll just take 7490 first, and then Sarabjit Gill, and then Ravi Sohul. I think these 3 calls will be enough for today. And before that, let me just take a small break, and we will be back after this commercial break.
ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਹੋਰ ਵੀਡੀਓਜ਼ ਦੇਖਣ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰੋ ਸਾਡਾ YouTube ਚੈਨਲ G Media Group